So, talking to chicks, language. Language is extremely powerful. Language does two main things. It reflects consciousness. My nephew is here. Say hi, John. John's one of my adopted nephews. Language reflects consciousness. That is to say, look up here, that is to say, by listening to how people speak, they will tell us something about how the deeper levels of their mind are structured and the way they move through their world. For example, when Carlos started saying, what if, that told me something about the way he approaches risk and the unknown, didn't it? If someone says to you, oh, love is a battlefield, that tells me a lot about how that person views love, that it's a fight, that it's about clash, that it's about power, that it's about beating the other person. Do you understand?
Yes.
People tell us a lot. You'll see when I work with the female demonstration victims, volunteers, you will see how much I can learn about them just by listening, because I know what to pay attention to. So language reflects consciousness, but also, and this is equally important, language structures consciousness. The way in which we use language, both with others, out loud, and to ourselves in our head, can structure the very states of consciousness that we can enter, and the very ways of thinking. Why do you think dictatorships, whether they're communist, fascist, or any other garden variety dictatorship, who are some of the first people that dictators jail, or shoot, or deport, or exile? What's that?
Intellectuals.
Intellectuals, artists, musicians. What does the Taliban do? The Taliban controls media, wants to control media and music, because these are powerful ways of shaping thought. They want to control the very way in which you can think. Has anyone read 1984, George Orwell's book?
Yes.
Where they deliberately made the populace dumber by controlling what words were in the dictionary. So language can structure consciousness, both for ourselves and the people who we are speaking to. That's what language does. Look here for a minute. You see, the idea that language can open up places in the imagination and evoke emotions, that's not new with me. That's the basis of theater. It's the basis of storytelling. It's the basis of political oratory. It's the basis of religious ceremony. I'm just telling you how to use it in a structured, predictable, intelligent, reliable way to get chicks. But it's based on the same ideas. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the speed seduction language constructs known as patterns. We hear a lot about language patterns. I'm going to define what they are and show you how to begin using them. Fair enough?
Yes.
Raise your hand if you've used any of my patterns successfully to bed chicks. Look around the room. Look around the room. So you've used my stuff and gotten laid with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well that's what I like to hear. So you're not that stuck. Language patterns are designed to do a few things. The speed seduction language patterns do a few things. They evoke, elicit, excite emotional responses. And flows of feeling. So some of the language patterns, when you use them, will evoke in women a set of emotional feelings. Fascination, desire, lust. They will feel these things in their body, right?
Yes.
Now, whether it's an emotional state of love, whether they label love, or whether it's a feeling of warmth in their body, we're going to use the term feeling to describe either one of those, okay? Feeling could be what they call love, or it could be a feeling of heat pulsing through their pussy. You understand? It will evoke a feeling response in the body, is my point. The language patterns will also get her to visualize. She will begin to visualize something in her mind. One of my language patterns that I haven't used in a long time, but it still works today, is something that deals with the difference between love and attraction. And part of the pattern talks about how you go home after you meet this guy who just really totally intrigues you. You go home and you picture this person in your mind. And you begin to imagine being with this person in all sorts of ways and situations. Maybe you imagine going on vacation or introducing them to your friends. And the more you realize that's what's happening, the more you feel that desire to connect even deeper, to the point where you can stop and imagine a time in the future, 6 months or even a year from now, looking back on this moment as having been the start of that connection. And you know, my friend's girlfriend says that her sister says that when you let that happen, Debbie, it's like you can't even put your finger on the source of your excitement, but if you could, you'd know, wow, there's a new direction you really want inside yourself. Anyway, when you were a little girl, all right? Now that pattern is going to get her visualizing things in her mind. Not just feeling things in her body, but she's going to visualize things in her mind, correct?
Yes.
Now that pattern also works because it's describing that pattern. I didn't just make it up out of thin air. I observed what women do. Women experience enjoyment with men in two contexts. One is when the guy's with them, but then when the guy's not around them, they dwell on the guy, they think about him. Given that that process happens naturally anyway, why not use it and evoke it? Every woman, when she connects in with a guy, at some point is going to go home and think about him. She'll either think about you from that place in her mind that's doubtful and skeptical or anxious, or she'll think about you from that place in her mind that feels connected and desires and daydreams about meeting the right guy. Do you understand? Those are the options. Or she won't think about you at all. Okay? So, given that that's the case, why not use your language to trigger that process that's already there in her mind anyway? She does it anyway. Language patterns don't put in anything that's not already there. The language patterns don't do something to a woman. They only awaken what's already in there. They awaken a process. Sometimes they awaken a process. What do I mean by a process? A process is anything a woman does in her mind naturally anyway to think about you when you're not around or when you are present, right? Do you understand this? So for example, do you understand that women will think about a guy when he's not around? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
They dwell and they fantasize. Now, they're either going to do that from a place in their mind that's skeptical and goes, guys are all bastards, fuck, Johnny fucker faster dumped me last week, or men are bastards. Or they could do it from the place in their mind that goes, oh my God, this guy is so hot. I wonder how big his wallet is, or whatever it is. You understand? Given that they're going to do that, do the speech seduction language patterns create that process out of nothing when she's never done it before? No, they're just using what's already there. The difference between speed seduction and, say, misery method or whatever is I'm looking at the processes that they do in their mind. They're looking at social, that evolutionary biology and all sorts of bullshit. I'm going, no one knows how we chose our mates 100,000 years ago. They didn't leave any written records. But I do know through observation of how women think. You understand what I'm saying? So language patterns can, listen to me, they can evoke flows of feeling in the body. They can evoke processes in consciousness where she visualizes things in her mind, makes sounds to herself. You understand? Something else. I said, I described it, I said, to the point where you can stop and imagine a time in the future, years from now, looking back on this moment as having been the start of that beautiful connection. Sometimes women not only fantasize about us in the present, women will imagine being with us 6 months from now or a year from now. They do that. They pseudo-orient themselves in time. They imagine being in the future with you. This is a hypnotic process, but they do it anyway. Does this make sense to you guys? Does anyone thinking, what the fuck is he talking about? Raise your hand if that's what you're thinking, and I will help you patiently, because I want you to get this. I won't make fun. You don't get what I'm talking about. Okay, so let me slow down.
And if I may ask,
Hold on, I'm going to get him first. Women fantasize about men, true? Right? When they fantasize about men, it's not just about what they want to do with that man right then and there. They'll imagine being with that man a year from now, still feeling connected to him, being madly in love with him, maybe even marrying him. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is women not only fantasize about you when you're not around, they fantasize about doing things in the future with you. And when you fantasize about the future, that's a very hypnotic process. If I put you in a deep trance and I said, now I want you to turn the clock forward, the calendar forward, it's 5 years from now. Tell me what your life looks like. What are you doing for a living? Who are your friends? That's a deep hypnotic process. I would have to train you in trance to do that. Do you understand that piece? But women do it naturally to themselves anyway. When they imagine being with a guy a year from now or 5 years from now having children, they're taking themselves into the future. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it's only 6 months. The point being that it's a very hypnotic process that we're triggering using these patterns. Does that make sense?
yes,
What do you mean by hypnotic process?
I mean, it's something that's going on at the deep level of the unconscious mind that has a lot of power. Women, there are women in the room. You ever meet a guy and you imagine being with him months into the future and looking back on the moment of meeting him as having been the start of it? You ever do that? Yeah, it's true. So why not use it? So one of the points about the language patterns is this. Look here. Look here. They work because this is how women think anyway. I didn't make them up out of whole cloth, they weren't channeled from an alien being from the Pleiades. They're not from the devil. Well, most of them. They work because they just reflect how women think anyway. That's why you don't have to worry about being caught, because you're not shoving anything in there. You're just using what's already there. Does this make sense? I want you guys really to get that. A language pattern can also can evoke different levels of consciousness. Let me talk about what I mean. So we've got body feelings. A language pattern can get her to feel certain feelings in her body. It can get her to visualize. It can get her to imagine being somewhere else in time and space with you. It can get her making sounds to herself. I noticed this one woman. You'll see me do this weekend. When I talk to women about, look here guys, when I talk to women about what it's like to meet a guy who they just really adore, sometimes you'll see them do this. And then they'll start telling me about it. Well, this sound, that's her trigger to open up the emotional centers of her mind and her body. So all I have to do is repeat that sound later on. And she goes back into that chain of thoughts and associates it to me. So some people are laughing. Has anyone ever seen this done and done it yourself? Am I lying, Sanjay?
No, you're perfectly right.
Perfectly
I
right.
have a problem with this thing.
Why?
When I do it in front of other guys, they think I'm gay.
I don't care. He says when he does it in front of other guys, they think you're gay. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck if you're getting juice dripped all over you by a hot girl? Who cares? Yeah, I'm gay. Come on, honey, let's go. Who gives a fuck?
oftentimes that disarms the threat, right?
Who cares? Patterns will also evoke different levels of consciousness. Let me explain what this means, all right? Now, this is only a model. I'm not saying it's true. Please understand, I respect science. Who here is a scientist, has formal training in the scientific method? I respect the scientific method. This is not science. I am claiming it's a pretty accurate model. If you treat it as if it were true, you'll see the results that I predict. A good model predicts results. So my model predicts certain results, and you will get those results, but it's not scientific. This is only a model. I think women have different levels to their mind. The first is what I call get it done, task. This is where she makes her list of the things she has to accomplish. Some people are very busy. Christine is a very busy human. She's in a master's program. Did you graduate?
I'm in my thesis.
Yeah, okay. So she works really hard and has a lot going on. So does Christina. We all have a checklist of things to do in the modern world, true? You follow me?
Yes.
Yeah? The next, and here's where pickup artists can sometimes be effective. I don't consider myself a pickup artist, by the way. I'm not a PUA. Social approval. Mass media. Checklist. This is something funny. Women often say to me, why don't you teach women how to get men? I say, okay, I'll teach you. Here's what you do. Throw away your checklist. Raise your standards and throw away your checklist. I said, what the fuck does that mean? You know that checklist? He has to be 6 feet tall, has to be 5 years older than me, has to make 6 figures a year, has to be this tall. Throw that all away. But raise your standards about the way you want to feel when you're around that guy. And you should see them go into trance. So I go back and forth when I say that. Like, what the fuck? I said, you heard me. Throw away your checklist, but raise your standards about the way you want to feel when you're around that guy. So, women have this thing about social approval. What will my friends think of that guy? This is also the mass media, all the messages from Oprah. Be a slut, don't be a slut. Be an independent woman. No, be the woman who surrenders to her man. Wear your skirts really short. No, wear long dresses. Fuck a lot of guys. No, don't fuck a lot of guys. Real women have multiple orgasms. No, real women squirt. No, real women don't need a man. They masturbate. All this stuff that's constantly pouring into their heads. Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Popular music. All the stuff. Have you ever sit in Starbucks and you're working and then you hear a song come on and you go, no, I don't want to hear it. My last girlfriend was substantially younger than me, like 30 years younger. And she liked this urban music that I fucking hated. When we lived together, it got on my fucking nerves. She loved this guy, Neo. Do you guys know who Neo is? So one day I heard this song coming on from her iPod, blasting through the house. I used to be commander-in-chief of my pimp ship, flying high, but love knocked me down. Love knocks you down. Song about a guy who used to get a lot of chicks and he falls in love, he turns into a pussy. And she's blasting out all the house and going, honey, if you're gonna live with me, you're gonna listen to that shit with headphones because I don't want to hear it. Right? All the popular media messages that control the way we should think and act. Anyone here see that piece of stinking maggot and crusted shit of a film called Hitch? Anyone see that movie Hitch? What does Hitch teach these guys to do? To beg for a woman's favor, to stalk women? I love her, I'm in love with her. You haven't even fucking touched her. You understand? It's incredibly puerile 7-year-old juvenile crap. But a kid is going to watch that and go, yeah, that's how I'm going to act. So this is the social approval mass media checklist part of the girl's mind. Now, where this can work is like a pickup artist, someone like Misery, someone like that. What they do is to tweak their entire life so they actually meet the checklist. They make themselves look and feel and act and live the lifestyle that actually appeals to club whores. To women who live in clubs 7 nights a week, they make themselves into the kind of guy with the kind of life and the kind of values that meets those women. It's the ultimate act of supplication and self-destruction. To shape yourself to actually be the kind of guy that women who value nothing but status and stimulation want. You follow me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Just expand on that just a little bit because I'm hearing something.
Okay. They're teaching you a club game, right? How to go into the club and pull the 10s who live in the club. You understand? Women who go to clubs 5 or 6 nights a week and get drunk 5 or 6 and high 5 or 6 nights a week. What do you think their values are in life? What do you think they value most? Stimulation, the next shiniest object, and status. I'm the most popular girl in the club. I'm here with the most popular guy. You understand?
Okay.
These guys live a lifestyle that appeals to those women. They dress the way they want the women to dress. They drink as much as the women drink. They take on that lifestyle. You get me?
Yeah.
It's the ultimate act of self-destruction and begging and supplication, is to tweak yourself to become the kind of person who appeals to that. Do you get me? So we don't want this. This is the problem with dating, the technical vocabulary of dating. Look at what I'm talking about. Sir, look here. The technical vocabulary of dating, when you say, I want to take you out, can I have your phone number? Can I take you on a date? Can we go out? When you use that kind of language, you're triggering this. When you ask the girl for her phone number and say, I'd like to go out with you, I'd like to take you out. Sit down, Dale. You're triggering this. Her checklist is going to pop up and go, oh, do I want to go on a date with this man? And then you're fucked. You get it? You're fucked. The third level is what I would just call her habits. Women form, a lot of women, not all women, but a lot of women form habits about what they like. I only go out with surfers. I only go out with muscle men. I only go out with tall, distinguished, brilliant Jewish men who created an entire movement and who are totally brilliant. Whatever it is. You ever heard a woman say, you're just not my type? You ever hear that?
Yes.
I've trained myself that when I hear that, I hear a zipper opening. I've sometimes have said to women, you know, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that, right prior to a woman dropping her pants, I'd be rich. Come to think of it, I am rich. Anyway, Debbie, her habits. Why don't we want her type and her habitual response? Why don't we want that? Well, we may not fit it. What if we don't fit it? Have we heard a woman say, you're just not my type? Or you are my type? How does she know? How does a woman know if you're her type or not? Meaning, what does she have to do inside her mind to know if you're her type or not? She has to go into her past and compare you to other men she's been with. We don't want people in their past. That's not a good direction for them to be looking at. We want them in the present and imagining themselves enjoying us in the future. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So language patterns, generally speaking, are designed to get past all of this. And instead, I'm going to call it the, let's just call it the suggestible place. The suggestible place, the primal place. The suggestible place, the primal place. This is the place in a woman's mind where she's deeply open to being led, deeply open to responding. This is the place where all the processes that would lead her to fuck us are sitting there waiting to be woken up. You understand?
Yes.
So the job of language patterns is to get to this place in her mind, to bypass all of this and get here. Do you understand? To evoke this level of consciousness and also to elicit and excite flows of emotion in her body, flows of feeling, get her visualizing, and get her making sounds to herself. Do you get it?
Yes.
That's what the seduction patterns are all designed to do. And they work because they're just doing what women do naturally anyway. I'm not making anything up when I do this stuff. Raise your hand if you've used these language patterns and gotten laid. Okay, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. From the time you used the language pattern to the time you got laid, how much time elapsed? How much time went by? Anyway, Sanjay.
20 minutes.
20 minutes. All right. How much money did you have to spend on the girl? Nothing. Was she hot? All right. Were you able to get women of that quality in 20 minutes prior to this material?
Not even 20 years.
Okay, not in 20 years. So here's my question. When you first used the patterns, tell me honestly, did you think they'd work?
I was not sure about it.
You weren't sure. Anybody, who else has used patterns and gotten laid from it? In the back of the room. Yes, sir. What's your name?
Tom,
Brother Tom, did you believe they would work?
no,
You didn't.
they work way too well.
So when they did work, what was your response inside? When you saw it actually working, what did you think inside?
It wasn't that it was working, just the response was so intense. I wasn't prepared for it initially.
What kind of response did you get?
She sexually assaulted me.
She sexually assaulted you? In what way? What did she do? Like grab your cock or?
She threw me down on the couch, ripped my pants off, started blowing me.
Wait, she threw you down, ripped your pants off and started blowing you. Uh-huh. And we got to get this on camera too. We're going to get a lot of work on the web.
Similar story like
Similar stories, okay. Who here had their pants ripped off and they got blown within minutes of using patterns? I'm sorry if this offends you, but this is great stuff. All right.
I had the basic home study course, the old one from the 90s.
From 94?
From 99.
From 1999, yeah.
Mark?
Yeah.
Okay, I had it for less than 48 hours and got laid.
48 hours you got laid? Will you come on camera and talk about that?
Sure.
All right, all right. We're going to get some good testimony. So the thing is, the language patterns work really, really, really well, and they work really quickly when you do them right. And did you get caught using it? Did she yell at you?
Never.
No.
And I would step on the commands just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
I never got blocked.
I want you to model him. See that guy back there?
Yes.
Go to lunch with him and figure out how he does it. Ask him, how do you do this? What blah, blah, blah. Let him teach you a little bit. Would you be willing to go to lunch with him?
Sure.
Sure, okay, good. So, now one more thing. These women who pulled down your pants and blew you, were you able to do that prior to speed seduction that quickly with women? Were you? Were they good looking women? On a scale of 1 to 10, what were they?
9.
A 9, you?
7 or 8.
Okay, were you able to get a 9 to blow you in 20 minutes prior to this?
Not right.
No, okay. So, why did that work on her? Because it bypassed all of this and went to here. That's how it works, all right? Are you following this? You think it's bullshit. You're not enjoying this, are you?
No, just a lot of post It's just a lot to take in.
Okay, don't worry about it. I will repeat everything multiple times. The reason I do a lot of stuff is to overwhelm consciousness deliberately. Half of my job is taking people's old ways of thinking and kicking it to the ground and stomping on it so they can't get back to it. Half of my way of doing that is to overwhelm. I promise you, we will put it together for you. Trust me. All right?
It's not that I don't think it's bullshit.
Okay. It's a lot to take in, but you have even more. When you say it's a lot to take in, you have a lot more mind than I can give you to take in. You have billions of brain cells with trillions of possible combinations. Anything I offer you at most is 150 different combinations. So you have more than enough processing power to get this if you don't talk to yourself in your mind. If you're constantly saying, am I getting this? Am I getting this? Am I getting it wrong? Is it going too fast? Then you're talking to yourself and you can't process what I'm saying. This is a parasitic way of learning. If you shut that down, if you just shut that little bit down, then the way in which you learn will improve massively. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. Okay, all right. I'm gonna fuck with him later. Yes, what do you want?
Well, I noticed like resistance comes up when I first got your materials, and now
Resistance in you or in them?
in me, in terms of, the only way I can explain it is like, let's say you went to school to become a car mechanic, and you like spent all this time, and then you graduated, and then got a sales job, and there was this kind of attachment to like all this time and energy you invested in the story.
So you did it wrong for so long, it's your best friend you don't want to let go?
Something like that. It's similar with the language patterns about how I used to approach women, and also with the stuff that keeps me stuck. The stuff you were doing yesterday. That somehow there's this like emotional attachment to all this years and decades of.
No, there's not. It may seem that way.
That's what it feels like.
It may,
That's the best I can explain.
it may seem that way. It may seem that way, but that's not what it is. It's just momentum. It's just momentum. That's all it is.
That emotional.
That's all it is. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to start actually learning some language patterns. I'm going to teach you the Twin Brothers pattern and Discovery Channel, okay? So let's talk about language patterns. What make for good language patterns? How do you know when you're doing a good language pattern? How do you introduce a language pattern? Fair enough?
Fair enough, yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, first of all, a good language pattern, an effective, powerful language pattern, has the right themes. Let me talk about the idea of themes. A theme, you could think of a theme as a subject or a topic of conversation. Generally speaking, as a general rule, there are always exceptions. If the topic of your conversation, the theme of your conversation, has to do with facts, data, numbers, anything you can put on a chart or graph or CV. Everyone know what a CV is? A curriculum vitae, your resume? If it deals with any of this, it's not a useful theme for seduction. All right? Can someone bring me a glass of, oh, the water's right there, I'll get it for myself. All right? So, anything that deals with facts, data, something you can put on a chart or a graph, is not a good theme for seduction. Because remember, with seduction, you want to capture and lead her imagination and emotions and activate the deeper levels of her mind. Correct?
Yes.
Here's an example. When I was in college, I knew everything about the United States nuclear arsenal and the Soviet nuclear arsenal. I could tell you the kind of ballistic missiles and what their range was and what their payload was and what their accuracy was. And for somehow I would go on about this, and 20 minutes later the girl disappeared. I don't know. My conversation could turn girls invisible because they would always disappear on me. Now, I was interested in it, I was passionate about it, but it just, it was giving her facts and statistics and geeky data. So if you can put it, hello, come on in, we're teaching guys to get laid. You look like you could use it. No. He's looking for the wealth seminar. Facts, data, number, doesn't work. So a good seduction pattern, look here, deals with themes, subjects, topics that capture and lead the imagination and emotions and activate that deeper place in your mind. Here are some examples of the kind of themes that would do that, okay? Connections. Connections, escape, fantasies, indulgence, body sensations, peak experiences, sex, but watch it. Watch talking about sex directly. It has to be done right. You understand? These are the kind of things, if you get a woman talking about these things, and you can talk to her about these things in a certain way, they're far more likely to capture and lead the imagination and the emotions. You understand?
Yes.